First story. My husband left me over text. After 10 years together. I never thought my marriage would end like this. After 10 years together, my husband, Mark, ended everything with a single text message. No conversation, no warning, just a few lines that shattered my entire world. I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I need space. Please don't try to contact me. I read it over and over, thinking it had to be a mistake. Maybe he'd meant to send it to someone else? Maybe it was a cruel joke? But as the minutes passed and my frantic calls went straight to voicemail, reality hit me. He was gone. Mark and I had met in college. He was charming, ambitious, and made me laugh like no one else. We built a life together, moved into a small apartment, struggled through our early careers, and eventually bought a house. I thought we were happy. Sure, things have been stressful lately, work, bills, and the normal pressures of life, but nothing that would justify this. I tried calling his friends, his family. No one knew where he was. His sister, Anna, was the only one who seemed genuinely shocked. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "He never mentioned anything about wanting to leave you." Days turned into weeks, and I had to accept the truth. Mark had abandoned me. Our house felt empty, like a hollow shell of a life I thought was real. I found myself replaying every moment of our relationship, searching for signs I had missed. Had he been distant? Distracted? Was there another woman? Then, one night, I found my answer. I was going through our shared laptop, desperate for some kind of closure, when I found an email, one he had sent to his lawyer. Subject, urgent divorce inquiry. Date, 3 months before he left. My stomach dropped. 3 months. He had been planning this for 3 months while pretending everything was fine. I kept reading. I want to handle this quickly and quietly. I'd prefer if she didn't contest anything. That's when I realized Mark had never intended to have a real conversation with me. He wanted to disappear, make it easier for himself. But you know what? I refused to be erased like that. Instead of breaking down, I fought back. I hired the best lawyer I could find. And when Mark finally resurfaced, expecting me to roll over and accept his terms, he was in for a surprise. I took half of everything. I kept the house, and I made sure he understood one thing. He may have walked away, but I would never let him make me feel small again. My neighbor Karen tried to get me evicted. It backfired. I've had bad neighbors before, but Karen? Karen was next level. When I moved into my new apartment, I was excited. It was in a nice neighborhood, close to work, and had a great view. But I didn't realize I had moved next to her. Karen introduced herself on my first day, a forced smile plastered on her face. Second story. "This is a quiet building," she said. "I hope you're not one of those noisy neighbors." I assured her I was quiet. I worked long hours, barely had guests over, and wasn't the party type. But that didn't matter. From day one, Karen made it her mission to make my life miserable. She complained to the landlord that my TV was too loud, when it wasn't even on. She knocked on my door at 6 a.m. to tell me my footsteps were too heavy. She even called the cops once, claiming I had suspicious visitors. It was my own brother. But the worst was when she tried to have me evicted. I got a notice from the landlord saying there had been multiple complaints about me disturbing the peace. I was shocked. When I asked who had complained, the answer was obvious: Karen. So, I decided to fight back. I installed security cameras inside my apartment, perfectly legal in my state. Within a week, I had recordings of her banging on my walls at random times and making fake noise complaints. I also had footage of her yelling at other neighbors, proving she wasn't just targeting me. Armed with evidence, I went straight to the landlord. And guess what? Karen had been lying about everything. The landlord was furious. Not only did she drop the complaints against me, but she also issued Karen a formal warning. If she continued harassing neighbors, she would be the one getting evicted. Since then, Karen barely looks at me. And the silence? Absolutely beautiful. Third story. My parents favor my brother, and I'm done pretending it's okay. I don't think my parents ever wanted 2 kids. They wanted him, my older brother, Daniel. And I was just extra. Growing up, it was always about him. If he wanted something, he got it. If I wanted something, I had to earn it. When he got bad grades, they made excuses. When I got bad grades, I was lazy. Every milestone, every achievement, I was in his shadow. The breaking point came last week. My parents decided to throw a huge celebration for Daniel's promotion. They rented out a restaurant, invited family and friends, spent a ridiculous amount of money. It stung, because when I got my first promotion, I got a congrats text. Nothing more. So, during the party, I decided to test something. I casually mentioned that I had gotten into a prestigious graduate program. It was a huge deal. Only a handful of people got accepted. My parents barely reacted. A polite nod, a quick "that's great, honey," and back to fawning over Daniel. That was it for me. After years of being the afterthought, I realized I didn't owe them anything. I didn't owe them my presence, my time, or my love. So I left. I walked out of the party and went home. And the next day, I blocked them. It's been a week, and the silence from them says everything. No messages, no calls, no "where did you go?" And that's when I knew I made the right decision. I may not be the child they wanted, but I'm done trying to be. Fourth story. My boyfriend was secretly living a double life. Thought I knew my boyfriend. We had been together for 4 years, lived together for 2, and even talked about marriage. He was my best friend, my partner in everything. But I had no idea he had been living a double life right under my nose. It all started with a missed call. One evening, he was in the shower when his phone buzzed. It wasn't unusual, but something about the name on the screen made me pause. Emily Redhart. I wasn't the jealous type, but we had zero Emilys in our social circle. And the heart emoji, that made my stomach twist. So, I did something I never thought I would. I picked up his phone. There were hundreds of messages. Flirty, romantic, explicit. Conversations about weekend getaways, inside jokes, and worst of all, messages from just a week ago where he told her he loved her. I felt like I was going to be sick. I kept scrolling, my hands shaking, and that's when I found the worst part. She thought she was his girlfriend. There were messages about their anniversary, pictures of them together at restaurants, places he told me he was at for work dinners. There was even a weekend trip he had taken with her, while telling me he was visiting his mom. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone. Then, I waited for him to get out of the shower. When he saw my face, he knew. He didn't even try to deny it. His excuse? "I love you both, I just didn't know how to choose." I laughed. Actually laughed. Because it was so ridiculous. I told him he didn't have to choose anymore. I was making the choice for him. I packed my things, left, and never looked back. A week later, Emily found me on Instagram. Turns out he had lied to her too. Told her I was his crazy ex who wouldn't leave him alone. We met up, compared stories, and realized just how deep his lies went. She left him too. Now, he's alone. And honestly, he deserves it.